A new session of our 8-week feature writing course with Script Camp. This is called Write a Movie in 8 Weeks. It's the bread and butter class of this entire server, and we are going to take you through writing a feature film from idea to finished draft in just these 8 weeks, these 2 months. And let's jump right in. So you're in a stage channel if you're joining us on Discord, and if you're not on Discord, you're watching on one of our other sort of social media platforms, you should come join our Discord, because then you can participate in the classes and speak on the sort of stage and participate more and get better feedback and get questions answered and things like this. So you can see here that we're in a stage channel, meaning that if you want to speak, you have to click the raise hand icon and click request to speak. And once you have been requested to speak, you will have to click the accept invite button, which should show up in a green bar on the top of the screen. So if you're wondering why you can't be heard, you might need to find that bar. But for the most part, you can use the text channel to participate in the class. If you mouse over the classroom channel, click the small white word bubble that says open chat, and on the right side of your Discord screen, you should see the text chat pop up for all your questions and comments, and that's also going to be the place that you're going to leave your log lines or premise ideas later if you have those ready. So we have also in the chat, if you check that out, you'll see a little poll that Nacho has shared with us, or he will be sharing a version of the poll soon that will tell you many different options for different upcoming events that you can vote if you're interested in. We also have many other servers, as you can see here. Script Camp is part of Skill Camp, which is our company. We're a non-profit company that offers free and low-cost classes to help you learn new skills to reach your life goals. Script Camp is the biggest of our communities, and it's where we started. We're almost toward that 4,000 member mark. So this is the biggest of all of our groups, but we have these other Discord servers too, like Code Camp, Film Camp, Creator Camp, Toon Camp, and Word Camp, all of which we've had classes on, and which your subscription includes access to. So by signing up, you will be able to take unlimited classes, events, workshops on all these different servers, whether you're into novel writing, animation, filmmaking, language learning, coding, and design, and many more being added all the time. You should sign up for Skill Camp. We have some free classes coming up too, and these will be open to everybody, but you should also know about what the benefits are of signing up. If you sign up, you get access to not only all of these free classes and events, but also the boot camps beyond just the first week. So we have week 0 and week 1 are to try it out and just see what the boot camps are all about. And then if you'd like to participate all the way through to the end, so weeks 2 through 8 of this boot camp, and the other ones, which include TV writing, which lasts 6 weeks, novel writing, which lasts 90 days, and we have other ones being added all the time. You should sign up for your unlimited membership, which we are actually ready to announce our new pricing for unlimited membership. If you purchase yearly, is now down to just $19 a month. We have reduced all of our prices in an effort to bring more people in and grow our community even further. This will include access to absolutely everything. And you can see also that unlimited has dropped down to just $29 a month if you buy monthly. So if you're subscribed to us, you will get access to over 100 hours of events, workshops, swaps, classes on WordCamp, Film Camp, Code Camp, Toon Camp, Creator Camp, and many more. Access to things like the Writer's Lab, which meets every Saturday to answer questions and help you workshop up to 5 pages of anything that you're working on. We have access to the video library, which includes recordings of all the previous classes and events. So plenty of great reasons to subscribe, and to all of our current subscribers, you will also have your subscription fees reduced as well. So this kicks in tomorrow, I believe, if I've got everything correct there. And this is in preparation for our new round of boot camps, which is starting today is the intro session, and our week 1 is going to be next week. So here's just a list of all the upcoming stuff. We're going to have Pilot Boot Camp Sundays 10 to noon, 6-week course starting July 16th. That's the day after tomorrow. Novel Boot Camp lasts 90 days. That's going to be Saturdays 12 to 2, and that starts in August. And we have this current feature boot camp that starts today, or week 1 is next week. That's going to be this time slot. So Fridays from 6 to 8 p.m. All these times are in Pacific time. All right, Nacho, anything else I didn't announce or anything I missed?
Yeah, I was just going to mention one change. So all unlimited members. So if this is, again, the one that's, this is, donation. Again, we're a nonprofit. We're just trying to, make it possible for as many people out there who can, to participate in the boot camps and to learn new skills. And one more small bonus that hopefully screenwriters will enjoy is all unlimited members will receive 100 script coins every month. So that's enough to host a table reading of your complete feature or pilot script.
Great. Thank you, Nacho. So, yeah, we have multiple opportunities per week for you to host a table read, which means that we have volunteers from all over the server are going to join and be cast as various voice roles. Everybody will read through your script as a group, and you will get that early reactions and feedback, which will help you in your revision process. So those script coins, you get them when you sign up, and you get them every month after you are signed up. You can use them to get table reads or also get additional months of subscription or little pieces of merchandise like sandals and things like that from the website. But you don't actually have to play with the script coins if you don't want. You can always just take the classes and participate in the workshops and events. So, yeah, plenty going on here. As always, here's a bunch of the free events coming up. Tomorrow, this is July 15th at noon, we have a QA session with our WGA writer guest, Max Perry, to answer all your questions about the current ongoing writer's strike in Hollywood, which is still going strong with no signs of slowing down yet. So you can feel free to talk his ear off about whatever questions you want there. Sunday, July 16th, so this Sunday, we have the intro of our pilot program, Write a Pilot in 6 weeks. That's going to be from 10 to noon. And then on Sunday, we have a brand new class on adaptation on WordCamp. This is going to be focused on adapting myths, stories, fairy tales, and kind of elemental older stories like that. But it will expand a bit beyond that, and we'll just be using that theme as kind of a good area for the exercises of that class. We also have week 1 of this class next Friday, 6 to 8, same time slot where it will run every week until it concludes after 8 weeks. Week 1 of Pilot Bootcamp, 23rd. And we have another brand new class called Writing with Partners with special guests that will sort of be a QA/talk-through session where we'll go over some tips as to how to collaborate best and work with a writing partner. That's going to be Sunday, July 23rd at noon. We also have one more brand new class. It's going to be in August. The date is not announced yet, but writing for younger audiences is something we've been working on in WordCamp for a while now with another great guest, so stay tuned for that. All right, plenty of announcements. That was almost like a whole class of just announcements. But we hope to see you guys soon. And also make sure to refer your friends because you will get free months of subscription, you and your friend, if you refer them and they get started here at Script Camp. All right, so let's look at the overview of today's Feature Bootcamp class, and then we'll also look at just what the course up ahead is going to contain. So today is week 0. This doesn't count towards the 8 weeks, so technically you could say it's 9 weeks, but we're going to look at the overview of the whole process and work on refining your logline in preparation for next week when you want to have as complete of a logline as you possibly can by the time that we start. A logline being that one sentence expression of what is the movie about, main character, conflict they're up against, whatever's standing in their way, some sense of the walls or boundaries of the story, and maybe a glimpse at the opposition, whatever it is that they are clashing with in that story. So that one sentence is going to answer that question, what is my movie about? And we want to have that be as strong a sentence as possible that answers a lot of questions and sort of acts as this early litmus test to make sure that your story is in good shape before you move to actually further outlining. So we're starting with loglines this week, and if you don't have a complete one or you're not close to having a complete one, that's okay, but you can just share what you have, and I can give you some tips to start forming it into a more coherent and logical logline by next week. Week 1 is going to be finalizing the logline by the end of class and filling out your sketchbook, or starting on the sketchbook. Sketchbook just being a sort of formatless document that you're going to use to contain all your notes for this one project. You don't want to have a bunch of different documents that have different stuff scattered throughout them. You want to have one, ideally cloud-based document in Google Docs or Drive that you're going to be using to keep all of the research information, pictures, inspirations, video or article links, all of that kind of information gathering that you'll have to do, as well as just early ideas that you have for characters, moments, scenes, dialogue, all that great stuff that you just don't have to have sorted or organized yet. You're just going to be gathering it all in one place. That's what the sketchbook is. Week 2 is on outlining. So on July 28th, we will be trying to work on this story beats summary. The story beats summary is a broad overview of the entire plot of your movie, so you have a good sense of what most of the scenes will be. It doesn't have to be every single scene, but the major moments and the major structural beats of your script are going to be kind of worked out in this session. When that's done, you're going to expand that into your story, into your scene cards. So that's where you're going to have to fill in those gaps in the story beats and kind of make sure that everything's working and fitting together. And you're going to be using your outline to build out a comprehensive picture of every scene in the whole movie. So it's going to be about a paragraph for every scene, as well as the page numbers that scene is going to take place on, or is sort of intended to take place on, with the intention of building a really clear roadmap so you know what happens on every single page before you even start writing the pages. The nice thing being The first half of the course is on preparation to write the story. You don't even have to get screenwriting software until halfway through. You're not formatting, you're not writing dialogue, you're not staging scenes until halfway through. We are focusing on getting all your ducks in a row, figuring out what happens on every single page before we begin. This is the method that I teach. It doesn't work for everybody. Some people really like to make stuff up as they go or find ways to modify this, or sometimes they feel I just need to write the first draft just to figure it out. And all those things are okay, and if that works for you, go right ahead. But I find that this organization is really key to doing this professionally, especially if you're going to be working in rooms with executives who will expect you to know and use this terminology and be able to talk about structure in a really, really comprehensive way and know how every piece of your story fits and works together. So this is, if nothing else, just an exercise to learn how you write and to learn how to organize as you move into a project that is this ambitious as writing an hour and a half to 2 hours of written entertainment, or what in theory is a blueprint that would create a company that would employ people to create a work of an hour and a half long to 2 hours of entertainment. That's how weird and abstract screenwriting is as an art form, but it's what we have. It's what we are left with. So you must learn the terms. You have to learn how it's done, and you have to learn how to stay organized, because when you're the writer on a movie, you're not just a guy who turns a thing in and then you're done. You become sort of the script department, and you have to make changes to that script and work with other people and always be ready to take notes and modify it. It's a collaborative process that you're not in full control of unless you're directing the movies yourself. And in any case, you just need to become very organized and have this methodology that you use and repeat it a lot and write so many movies that you know this like the back of your hand, and you can write a whole coherent hour and a half long story about a napkin and a bag of tuna fish. A bag of tuna fish? Tuna doesn't even come in bags. What am I saying? Okay, but hopefully you get the idea. So we're getting organized. We're building a method. Alrighty, what else? We move from week 3 into week 4, which is beginnings, and we actually start the script on August 11th. From there, you're going to be writing about 20 to 25 pages a week. That's either 4 or 5 pages per weekday, which is a couple scenes at most. It's probably 2 or maybe 3 scenes max per day. You have weekends off, so if you just write 4 or 5 pages on weekdays, then you will finish on time by September 15th. And every week of class, as we are moving through pages, we say we go to pages, means that you go from outlining and pre-writing to actually formatting pages, writing dialogue, staging scenes. As you do that process, then you're going to be working through in each class meeting that section of the script, and we're going to have lecture portion on that part of the story, starting with beginning, moving up through transition, so act break into second act, then escalation into third act, and finale stuff and epilogues and endings towards our last class meeting, which is on September 8th. Okay, so you are really encouraged to keep up with the milestones of the class. I mean, this is called a boot camp for the reason that there's a high bar set, a lot expected of you, but you are here because you have a high work ethic and you want to do these things, and you are excited to roll up your sleeves and perform the hard work of writing a feature. It's not exactly easy to come up with an hour and a half to 2 hours of entertainment that holds together and excites people and fulfills genre promises, but also surprises them, and it delivers everything they want, but not in the exact way they thought they'd get it, and all these things. So it's a challenging feat that you're taking on, but you'll only get better by doing this again and again and again, and nobody's first thing is going to strike gold. Nobody's first thing is going to get sold, so try to not be focused on how am I going to get this sold and copyrighted and make my show and make my millions of dollars. There is a writer's strike going on right now, as you guys know, which is expected to last for the remainder of this year or probably at least towards the end of this year at minimum. You can ask Max more about it tomorrow, so do not be focused on how am I going to get my thing made right now. So in any case, let's focus instead on getting better at getting really, really undeniably good at writing scripts, which is, of course, the prerequisite to actually selling those scripts and becoming that script department and creating these companies, because a movie is a company that employs, up to 100 people and moves dozens of millions of dollars. So it's kind of like important that you be really good at this before anyone would even think of hiring you for it. All right. We have a question in the chat. So you're saying there's a window for us newbies to strike break? No, certainly not. I would not recommend that. That will get you banned from joining the guild later. So let's not strike break. Let's stand in solidarity with the WGA and now Screen Actors Guild, which is also authorized to strike too. But feel free to ask Max all about that tomorrow. Okay, so you can, if you've not yet signed up and you want to be in the rest of this course, you should go to scriptcamp.net/classes and you can get the course on its own. Or you can sign up for our membership, which is now super cheap now that we've cut our prices. So you should go to scriptcamp.net/membership. sign up for your unlimited, and then you will get access to absolutely everything that we do here. Okay, so let's maybe start with just intro/discussion, and we have a big group here, a lot of people, so we won't be able to get to everyone. We're not guaranteed to get to every volunteer, but if you'd like, weigh in the chat with your text comment, or you can raise a hand and tell us what are your goals, what are you hoping to accomplish, maybe tell us what is your skill level, and if you've written scripts before, maybe some genre that you're interested in, or a favorite writer that you have, something like that, or maybe something you're specifically looking to learn. Feel free to just introduce yourself and tell us about what are your goals and what are you hoping to get out of the course. Normal guy, go ahead. We have normal guy on stage, but maybe you are on push to talk mode because we're not getting any audio input. You may have to reconnect your mic. I would check your voice and video settings by clicking the gear icon in the bottom left and click voice and video and make sure that output device or an input device are set up correctly. I'll read some comments in the chat in the meantime. Carmen says, I've written 6 scripts in Script Camp, in case you're skeptical. Thank you, Carmen. Yeah, a lot of people have written script after script with us, even if it was their very first. Were you able to get the mic working, normal guy? Maybe not yet, but that's okay. I'll just leave you on if you are able to figure it out. I'll read a couple more comments in the chat. We have a question. How often do boot camps get repeated? Like, is it after 1 6 or 8 week session ends? How long is it before another one begins? It's usually the next week. So if you're looking to join the next one, just wait 8 weeks and then a new one in this course will start. Normal guy says pass to somebody. Okay, I'll move you back to the audience, and if you're able to get that working, feel free to raise your hand up again later. All right, Dakota says, hello, hope everyone's doing well. I've been writing scripts for 10 years. I hope to write a feature about one of my heroes in the film industry that has never been told before. Excited to learn from everyone here. You must be always learning. Be well and have a great weekend. Stay creative. Thank you, Dakota. Glad you've had some experience with this already. Even more experienced writers sometimes like the structure and the accountability of the bootcamp format really kind of cracks the whip, forces you to finish within a certain time frame and deadline, which is helpful even if you already have the basics down. Looks like we have a raised hand from Vichikita. Go ahead. Hi, you're on the stage.
Hi.
Hi, Vichikita. What are your goals for the course, and anything else you want to tell us?
Right now my goal is to turn a short film script I had into a film. It's like I've been working it a bit. I still think my concept is a bit lacking, I guess. And I want to better it, and working here, I suppose it's going to help me a lot.
Great. Okay, so you've already got a short film, so you have some idea of what your feature is going to be like, but expanding that story and finding a way to turn that into a full feature is, of course, a big challenge. So glad you know what you want to work on already. Do you have any big questions about the course coming up?
For now, I just want to know as the course goes, because I'm just curious to see how things turn out in the end.
Great. Okay, sure. Well, we're looking forward to seeing your feature scripts get written over the next couple months. Thanks for volunteering. All right. So we have a couple more comments in the chat. Shakira says, my name is Shakira Branch, and I'd like to get a beginner's level tutorial on how to write a movie. I'd like to understand how to format my script. It's good to be here to learn with all of you. Thank you, Shakira. UFO says, I haven't written a script before, but I'm willing to learn, and I have some ideas I hope to write in the future. Great. And last, we have Lee that says, one of my minor lifelong goals as a writer is to teach fantasy audiences that people in the Middle Ages used contractions when they spoke, just like we do. Thank you, Lee. Hi, normal guy. Go ahead.
Sorry for those technical problems. Hello, I'm a normal guy. sorry, English is not my first language. I'm a Latin American screenwriter, so I mostly write in Spanish. Uh, I am a little bit scared, but my goal as a writer is to understand the human emotions and write dramas, everything mixed with drama, because it's the only thing that I do very well.
Drama. Okay, great. Sure, that's cool. And as a Spanish speaker, you have a lot of other. There's a lot of other Spanish speakers in the server too. So if the language challenges ever come up, then you can ask for some help. I'm sure some people will be able to help you out.
Oh, okay. I've written some short films. They are very overly dramatic. So like it's very, I don't know how to say it, but it's like a telenovela. But I want to grow up and be more realistic.
I see. Okay, so moving from like more melodrama into down to earth, grounded drama. That makes sense.
Thanks for that.
Sure. Thank you for weighing in. He says he's Venezuelan. All right. Guardian Pair says, I want to learn to create conflict. So all of Act 2. Yep, super important. All right. So thanks for weighing in, everybody. We'll look at the ground rules next. So first of all, if you don't have an idea yet, maybe just go with something weird that grabs your attention and is fun. We should, for this course, usually not be choosing something really near and dear to your heart. Not something you've been working on since you were a child, and it will be a huge deal if you don't get it just right, because that actually ends up being a huge sticking point for a lot of writers when they are starting out, that they don't feel they can finish something because it's not perfect. So the best thing to do is to commit to finishing something that just will not really be perfect, and to pick something that will hold your attention and keep you coming back and keep you excited for the 8 weeks, and then you'll be able to sort of move on afterwards. So my recommendation is some brand new, fresh ideas for a feature, and try to get used to sharing that work at the early stages with your fellow students and with me and with everybody. It can be difficult to hear big notes at early stages, but hopefully you will start getting used to receiving and working with notes throughout this class. There's no way to do this without getting lots of notes. Everybody does, even I do. Every writer always has to be tangling with these notes that we're getting. So really try to accustom yourself to that and be ready to receive them as gracefully as possible. This thing of receiving notes and feedback, it doesn't sound like a skill, but it actually is a skill that needs to be refined and worked on, and not everyone's perfect at it. So you being good at collaborating and nice and easy to work with and receptive to ideas and all these things are really essential to getting hired in Hollywood, beyond just the skill of, can you write something really good? The question then becomes, can we stand you as a person, and are you going to be easy to work with, or are you going to be a big problem? So although like there's no actual obligation to follow any notes you get, these are all just like opinions and guidance based on, my subjective take as a person who writes movies in Hollywood. The goal is for you to get used to receiving feedback and to work on strategies that to incorporate that feedback while still maintaining the essence of what you were trying to do in the first place. So work on that and try to take and receive these notes as gracefully and as constructively as possible, and just be actively practicing that as you take notes, not just kind of passively letting them wash over you. Okay, what else? So last, I would say, if you're going to continue in the course past the free classes, then you should use a real name instead of your username. You can right-click your name and change it, or you can ask one of us to change it if you want. And for this class, you don't have to do it, but if you're going to continue past the free classes, please use a real name. If you really don't want to use your real name, you can use a nickname, but it must be a name. Okay, some suggestions for ideas to choose. Ideally, you want to choose some brand new idea or a major rewrite of something before that you don't feel like you have to adapt something perfectly. You don't want to do true stories, anthologies, or adaptations of anything for the class. Nothing that's going to require a lot of extra research, so probably don't do a historical unless you are so well educated in that time period that you don't need to do any research at all. Just don't write a time travel script. Just believe me, just don't. We have never once seen someone successfully complete a time travel script within this time frame. So don't take that as a challenge. Just don't do it. And if you're newer at this, beware of really difficult to manage devices on the page, especially sci-fi devices that involve multiple copies of the same characters, like clones, multiverse, and intertwined flashback structures and things like this. Be really careful with that unless you know exactly what you're doing. It's going to make like anything that's going to make writing a movie in 8 weeks harder are things that you should avoid doing, because your goal is to finish the script in this time, whether it's good or not. And the best way that you're going to sort of learn to improve is when you learn to be okay with writing stuff that's not perfect. So you're always like trying to, writers tend to have this kind of perfectionist tendency that we're always struggling with, and it is a huge impediment early on to say, I can't write the end until it's perfect. So you need to accustom yourself to being under a deadline and having to turn something in, whether it's good or not, and trying to fit, stick with the milestones and finish on time. And you're trying to build a method by which you can do that, given all the challenges and stresses that you have in your life. Careful with those sci-fi devices, but this is a good time to just take a big swing and write something weird, funny, and fun while just building these skills and fundamentals. If you're like, I don't know, would it be fun to write a movie about a little toad that needs to get married? Sure, okay, write a story about a toad that needs to get married. This is a good time to just try something that just catches your attention that you won't feel too attached to. So here's an overview of the upcoming course, and all the courses follow the same format because this is just what I really use to write stuff in real life. We start with the logline, being that one sentence expression of what is the story about. It's going to give us usually the format looking something like, when inciting incident, an adjective protagonist must conflict before stakes. We'll get more into that in a moment, but that's just like a quick glance at what a logline is. The one sentence that tells us what is the thing that kicks off the story. Whom are we following and along their journey? What are the challenges that they'll be facing in that journey? What's acting against them? And what is the boundaries, walls, or time frame that this is going to take place in? So those are the basic questions we're going to answer in the logline, so give me just a moment and we'll get more into that. Next we have Sketchbook, which I mentioned already, and you actually will be able to start today. This is a blank document that there's really no right or wrong format for, but it's going to include an unsorted kind of collage of all of your research materials, influences, inspirations, and ideas for this particular project, all in the one same place. So they shouldn't be scattered around to a bunch of different project files or anything like that. So not in today's class, but in the coming weeks, we will go into story beats in 2 weeks. The week after that, we go to scene cards. And the week after that, we go to pages. So in 5 weeks from today, you will be starting the script, having finished all of the pre-writing. Will the script be good when it's done? No, but that's not the point. It's a first draft, and ultimately, it doesn't even have to be good. If it's a 10th draft, you need to move beyond the idea that any individual script needs to be good to have it be worth doing. You need to be able to excite yourself about a story, execute it to the best of your abilities, and then move on. That skill of moving on, again, is one of those things that doesn't sound like a skill, but it is one. The ability to realize when you've done all you can, or at least the ability to hype yourself up about the next idea and to generate that excitement in yourself, is really key to doing this, because you will have to write script after script after script. You're not just doing this to write one single script. Okay, so I think I will skip this discussion question for now, and I will briefly mention the rewrite. So we will, this class is mostly on writing a first draft. We have covered this topic of rewriting in other boot camps in the past, and you can find quite a few recordings of those on our YouTube channel. But if you just want a quick glance at what does it take to go through a script again, we start by making a re-outline, which is a new outline based on the version of the script that you ended up with, not the one that you planned on to begin with, but you want to have a snapshot of what the story ended up as. You're then going to gather notes from different readers that are going to be really easy to gather in something like a table read. So if you want people to actually read your script and not put it off for 10 months, as they eventually maybe might get to it, you will probably want to do a table read, at which point you can get their feedback and aggregate it into one document, which we call the notes document. You're then going to make copies of both of those and combine those copies into what we call the revision guide, where you're going to be able to see a chronological list of everything that happens in the story from your re-outline, as well as a list of all the notes and changes that need to happen that you're going to then work on building a guide to how you will incorporate those changes, what to cut and what to keep. At that point, you're going to move ahead to the rewrite part, where you will have to open a new and blank document. You're going to start from scratch, and you will copy and paste things over from your previous script as needed, but you're going to make sure to give yourself that extra sort of room, psychological space that you need to kind of write whole new connective tissue between these scenes as they come up. And then finally, when that new draft is done, you're going to mark up your revision guide to keep track of your progress as you go. And when you have finished through that first pass, you're going to do extra passes focusing on just specific elements that still need tuning up, maybe just dialogue, maybe character arcs, maybe just action. It could be whatever it is that still needs those additional passes. You're going to do maybe 4 or 5 of those. and you will consider that to be then the definitive next draft. We want to avoid this kind of draft creep problem where it's just like, oh, I made a couple changes here, I made a couple changes here. When is it actually a new draft? Well, this is how we kind of avoid that problem. We say this is definitively the new draft when you've accomplished everything in your revision guide. So you've accomplished all of your objectives for the rewrite, and you actually, first of all, create a concrete list of objectives for your rewrite and approach this again with a sense of really clear organization and objectives that have realistic goals attached to them. Okay, so that's a just quick look at what a rewrite is like. If you're feeling overwhelmed now, well, this is a lot of work. There's no way around it. This is fun, certainly, but part of what is difficult about this is reminding yourself what is fun about your own ideas, which is to some extent why my friends who are comedy writers, when they're pitching with producers and stuff, they will do things like come up with different jokes and just insert them into the story every time they read a new draft. The goal is to keep yourself excited and to keep coming back to this with enthusiasm and vigor, because if you start to wane too deeply, or too much of that, then it will become clear and your writing will just get flabby. So you have to remember what's fun about your idea. Maybe it's helpful to even write down exactly what's fun about this on your front page of your sketchbook, something like that. Just try to maintain that level of energy and momentum, both in terms of writing good quality scenes, but mostly just keeping up with your page goals, writing those 4 to 5 pages a day once we start pages, and finishing by the deadline. The goal is not to write a perfect script, it's to finish a script. Okay, so I think I've basically gone over this stuff. Yeah, let's skip this slide. Let's go to the next one. So the goal here is not to write a perfect script. I think more accurately, it's to become this generator of unlimited great scripts, because you, the writer, are the end product. The script is not like the end product. You're trying to become the end product. So you're trying to develop these skills necessary to execute these scripts consistently on a quick time frame, which is 8 to 12 weeks for a first draft, and then with a high level of quality. Of course, as high level as you can. Don't feel stuck or fixated on that if you are like, this obviously isn't good, because that is a valley that everybody goes through where their taste exceeds their capabilities and they realize, wait a minute, the stuff I'm making is bad. Everybody goes through that, so just try not to get too disheartened by that. The course is not really intended to coach you into writing a great script, so don't expect it to be, and don't heap that expectation, or don't carry the burden of that expectation that this will go anywhere, or this has to be the thing that gets you a meeting or gets you reps or gets you money. We are in a writer's strike. Those things will probably not happen right now, and it takes many years of writing many scripts to get to the level where you are placing in contests and taking meetings with management. Okay, what else? Yeah, this is work. This takes a long time. Nobody starts out good at it. I don't think I want to go through all these myths and assumptions. I just want to drop early on, you should be doing this because you love movies and really, really like them and want to make things like the things that you like. You shouldn't be doing this because you're like, everything out there is bad. I hate everything. And now I'm going to show these hacks how it's done. It's just like a weird attitude to approach this with. You should be doing this because you're a fan, and you should be writing in a genre that you are a fan of, not be picking one because you're like, well, this is what's selling right now. It has to be this formulaic crap or whatever. You should be excited and enthusiastic about this, and you have to believe in your own ideas, and you have to try. So as long as you're doing those things, then you are in good shape. Let's skip over a lot of this boring stuff. Let's maybe just go over this really quick. How do you be a feature writer? How do you get paid to be a feature writer? Well, it's really difficult. It takes many, many years, but step 1 is get really, really, really good at writing movies. Step 2 is actually go back and do step 1, because you're probably thinking that you're achieving that before you were actually ready. I thought that I was ready way before I actually was. It happens to everyone. You then want to make a portfolio of 3 to 5 unique and riveting and interesting, attention-grabbing, amazing scripts with strong characters and strong plotting and that look and feel amazing on the page, and kind of just check all the boxes for what reps are looking for right now, which is unique voices and fresh ideas and sharp command of scene craft and all these things. You're going to try to create a portfolio of maybe a couple of those. 3-ish is a good number of these features to have, as well as perhaps other types of writing like pilots, plays, and other stuff. You then can try entering contests and fellowships, such as the Sundance Labs, Blacklist Labs, contests like Nickel and Austin. You can do this and then query management. Managers are usually the best place to start for feature writers nowadays, and you're going to query them with the accolades that you've accumulated for your script in the subject line. So you will say, I was a semifinalist at Nickel. This has an 8 on the blacklist. You should read the script. And at that point, there's a chance that some of them might. Maybe 30% of queries will actually request to read it, but maybe less, maybe slightly more. But if you have those accolades, that is really the key to getting the queries to work. If you don't have anything attached to it, then there's almost no reason they'll read your query. But in any case, you're going to be able to send scripts to those managers. Maybe they'll ask you to send them something else. Maybe they won't. You'll get ghosted a bunch of times. In any case, you want to try to secure manager meetings. And then you're going to have to nail those manager meetings and really impress them and seem like someone that has a lot more work to offer and that will be decent and easy to work with. You're going to then be able to sign with a manager, at which point you're going to have to keep networking, and you still have to do a lot of work on your feet. They're not going to do everything for you, but they will be able to get you, perhaps when it's not a strike time, the ability to pitch on an open writing assignment, or they will have connections that will get you in the room to pitch on certain properties, or things that are just looking for adaptations. If you're a comedy writer, you're going to be pitching on everything from movies based on board games, candies, and cereals. So we're in kind of a weird spot in the feature space right now, but that's just kind of how it works. And then once you get your, corporate movie or whatever, then you earn a lot of clout and the ability to kind of branch out to more personal or slightly more unique stuff. It helps to have broken in once you have your feature, because if you sell a feature, you're able to join the WGA, the Writers Guild. There's a point system by which they determine who can join the WGA, and selling a feature film to a guild signatory company earns you all 24 points. That takes a long time, though. It's usually several years after you sign with your manager that you will finally actually sell a feature, and there are about 50 feature spec sales every year, so good luck. In any case, here's the steps outlined here. You have to really go through these last couple steps of working with manager to take script out, taking generals, then taking specific meetings, then having stuff fall through or fall apart a bunch of times, doing a bunch of rewrites and free work, and eventually you will have something sold to the to a WGA signatory, and you will be able to join the guild. Okay, why is this so difficult? Well, we know that writing, first of all, just beyond the question of it's difficult to write a good story, getting good feedback is hard. Most people don't grow up reading scripts or don't have a lot of experience doing so, and the pool of people that you can actually draw from to teach you what you did right and what you did wrong is pretty small. And beyond that, you're not going to have the same taste as everybody, including the people evaluating you, so that you have to find somebody not only that is willing to overlook the taste differences or boundaries and what is separating what they like from what you do, but also somebody who has the expertise to tell you exactly what you did right and wrong, a little bit more useful than just, I liked it, good job. A script is a really long document, though, that most people are going to put off forever and not read. So again, recommend table reads if you want to force people to actually read your script and respond to it. And people just have this wide spectrum of reactions, even to highly lauded, critically acclaimed stories, so you have to keep that in mind too. People who don't really read scripts usually will just want to support you and say, good job, this is cool. And people who do read scripts for a living usually don't want to do extra work outside of their normal job hours. So you have to exceed a higher bar with them, unless they're going to be extremely generous with their time. And you have to be aware that their standards are going to be much higher. So other good things you can do, maybe start a writers group or attend the genre groups that we have here on Script Camp. And you can use these groups to collaborate/commiserate with other writers, learn what they're working on, give them feedback, they give you feedback, and start networking and building those communities here. It's really essential to do this. What else? Why do you want to write a movie? So you might want to be a professional screenwriter. That's usually the best reason. You might just want to sort of become more skilled at the craft and learn more about it just in like a sort of hobby sense. Or maybe you want to direct the movie yourself. But those are pretty much the reasons. It's not realistic to try to say something like, I want to write a movie and have some famous person direct it, but I just want to write one. I just want to get one out of my system. It's sort of like saying, I want to be in just one Major League Baseball game. I mean, you're going to have to be in so many smaller league baseball games to get to the Major League one that you're doing this because you want to be a professional, because it's a fun hobby, or because you want to direct yourself. But in any case, you don't really have to worry if any of them is a masterpiece, and you kind of have to put that out of your mind and just look at it as a long road, a long brick road that needs the next brick in it in order to get where you're going. All right, let's make sketchbooks. So open Google Docs, and why don't you make a new document right now, and you're going to title it Sketchbook, maybe name of your movie Sketchbook if you want to, if you have a name. At the top of the document, you're going to include just these 4 basic listings, these 4 basic facts: title, genre, logline, and comps. And you can begin filling out the sketchbook right now with your ideas as you are developing the logline today. So if you don't have any of these, it's okay, but fill in what you have. And you're going to just always have this open in class and always be taking notes, writing down questions, and doing this pre-writing and early work. I'll give you guys a second to do that. If you don't have Google Docs, you just need to sign up with a Google. If you have a Google account, you have a Docs or Drive account. If you have YouTube or Gmail or any of these things, it should be easy. If you have a different word processing thing you really want to use, you can. It's just easiest to share from Docs, and everybody, a lot of people on the server already use it, so are already familiar with it. All right, and remember to include title, genre, logline, and comps right there at the top. Shall we go over logline? Let me maybe touch on those other things before we get to logline. Let me go a little bit more into Sketchbook first. So, Sketchbook, there's no right or wrong way to do it, and a lot of people have asked for templates and formats for these things in the past, and there's no template and there's no format for this. It's a place to collect your notes, sketches, and ideas as you continue to develop the story. The sketchbook is never done and never needs to be done. It's something for you to draw from as a resource and as an early organization tool to get things out of your head and onto paper, just to start assembling the basics of your movie. It's there for you to flesh out your characters, come up with names for them is a helpful way to start thinking of them as characters, as opposed to just, I don't know, the dad in the story. You're like, that's Jeff, the dad. The dad is Jeff. Coming up with themes for your story, or maybe thinking of what your dramatic argument might be, thinking of some big moments, some sequences you want to include, even if you don't have any context for them. You could say, I just really want to include a motorcycle chase set in the Louisiana Bayou. I have no idea why, but it will be somewhere in the movie. The sketchbook is a great place to just write that down. Brainstorm possible endings, snippets of dialogue, research material for the setting and story world, photos, drawings, or just anything else that inspires your writing or gives you information to work from. So, sketchbook, important to keep and always have open so you are able to be working and writing things down in class. I think we can look briefly at title and genre and comps before I go to logline. So title, you don't need to know or have in mind. The title is a useful tool as well as any of these other things, because the title sets the expectation of what is this movie going to be like a little bit. It's going to tell us kind of a hint at the tone of it. It's going to tell us what the subject matter is going to be, maybe who the main character is, or just what world we're in. And it's often the last sort of piece, the bow on top of the high concept package, because if you have a really clear high concept movie, there usually will be a title kind of emerges and reveals itself that kind of sums up exactly what that story is. And I've talked about this a bit in the past in reference to high concept writing. Do I have a slide on that here? Yeah, here we go. So think of something like, Shanghai Noon is a title that kind of perfectly clarifies what the movie is. High Noon meets Shanghai. We have a kung fu guy in the Old West. The title is the last piece of that really clarifies it and makes us understand what the story is. It clarifies the hook. The title clarifies the hook a lot of the time. So title, it doesn't have to be perfect, and it can change a lot over the course of the story, and maybe you'll think of a better title at the end that you can retroactively apply. So don't worry way too much if you don't end up with a perfect title. Genre is really important, though. So I think I'd like someone to volunteer to tell us what genre means and tell us about the genre that you want to write in. Anybody volunteer for this? Dakota, go ahead.
Hello. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yep, I hear you. Go ahead.
Okay, great. So genre is essentially the... I've always thought of it as, what kind of film is this? Is it a comedy? Is it a horror? And there are certain elements within the genre that essentially make it whatever that happens to be. A romantic comedy, for example, is going to have both comedic elements and romance elements in it. So genre is kind of a loosey-goosey, like there is a rigid definition, but that's kind of how I like to think of it, as what are the elements of the thing that kind of make whatever it is that you're trying to work at. There are different blends like dramedy, things like that. So it's kind of a weird word, honestly, but it's still very fun. It is very important because if you're trying to write a horror, but you end up making it a comedy, or more of a comedy than anything else. There are horror comedies, but you kind of lose. It's very easy to lose genre, especially in first draft land. So make sure that you kind of stick to one, if you can. Definitely helps, especially if it's your first time, or if it's your first draft. Stick to one. It will help you. Think about certain things that are common, in genres, um, that are very much well known, like film noir, or comedy or horror or whatever it is. I'm more of a dramatist. I like dramas. Um, it's dramas can vary, and there's a lot of subsets to that. Um, but yeah, that's basically how I personally have viewed genre. I don't have the fancy smancy definition, but yeah, that's kind of the good way to think about it.
Thank you, Dakota. Yeah, those, I think you're spot on. Genre is a collection of expectations. And with those expectations, we're getting things like expectations as to the ideas or subject matter that the story will concern, or primarily it's telling us what is the intended emotional experience of the story. What are we supposed to feel while we are watching this thing? And the more you blend these genres together, you mentioned dramedy or things like that, horror comedy, the more nuanced of an emotional tone that you're promising. So you can try whatever genre you want. I mean, I would pick one that you like and not pick one that you deliberately don't like, because you probably don't watch the ones that you don't like. And if you don't watch it, then you won't know what's been done already. And it's harder to sort of subvert expectations if you don't know what the expectations are in the first place. So definitely write a genre that you are familiar with and you know how it works. But it's a good place to try something new. So if you just have to be a fan of it, you don't have to be an expert. If you just really like science fiction movies, you can write a science fiction movie, and you know what the sort of expectations are that come with that, for instance. Thank you, Dakota. So, you gotta choose your genre, and I would say don't pick more than two. Like, if you're gonna mash them together, you can mash them together in whatever combination you want, but don't pick more than two, because as soon as you start saying it's three things, then it just becomes really hard to visualize and picture, and it's just gonna stop helping you after two. It just starts to feel like too many flavors together. So try to boil it down to just two, and make it make sense within those confines, and your audience, your readers will thank you. If you say it's a fantasy, action, comedy, western with tragedy elements, everyone's going to be like, I can't even envision this anymore. It sounds like you've just mixed together all the different froyo toppings in one cup, and now it's going to be a pineapple, gummy bear, chocolate, Oreo, vanilla blast, and that just doesn't sound like anything. Okay, so, and last we have comps. Comps, there's not really an exact science to these, but you might... Do I have a slide on just comps? I don't think I do. Yes, I do. Here we go. So, the comps, I was saying it's like this movie meets this movie. This is an effort to kind of calibrate the audience's expectations and tell them what our goals are. So, it's telling us like the specific nuanced emotional tone that we're going for, the world that we're in, and the style or approach that we're taking with the story. Comps are kind of dumb, and they feel sort of weird and dated and like silly to include. But as much as we make fun of them, we still do use them, especially managers. We really love them and use them all the time, so try to get used to using these. We tend to skew towards movies that are recent and popular, or really very in the zeitgeist, or older ones that are well remembered, but you're not going to earn bonus points by using comps that no one has heard of before. In fact, you only lose points if they have to look something up, so to speak. So try to not show off or use obscure comps that are like, well, my tone is so nuanced that the only thing that could possibly express what this is like at all is if I reference this Romanian art house movie from 1937. Well, if no one knows what it is, then that's just bad. So you have to make sure we will probably know what it is. But there's certain things that you can always use as comps if they're well remembered or famous enough. You can always use Casablanca or Back to the Future as comps, even though they came out a long time ago. So yeah, try to just take a swing at these. You can just again limit it to 2. Don't include too many comps. It can't be like, Mean Girls meets Seven Samurai meets the Big Lebowski meets Royal Tenenbaums. That just sounds like absolute nonsense. So try to just limit it to 2 comps. And you might think of it as the world of X in the style or tone of Y, but it doesn't have to follow that format. I have just found that is useful in the past before. There's not an exact science to this, but do your best and try to really be careful with the tone that you're promising and also like the content that you're promising. Like if you're writing a historical adventure movie, but you include Lord of the Rings and Pirates of the Caribbean as your comps, we're going to think your movie probably has fantasy elements in it. So just think carefully as to what is the subject matter and tone and content of those comps, and try not to lead people down thinking of it as the wrong, as you're trying to reach a different goal than you really are, because then they will grade you differently, and they will we're trying to evaluate whether or not you're reaching the goal that you have set for yourself, and whether or not you have created an experience that actually does adequately merge the experience of those 2 comps. Okay, I'm going to pause for questions on comps, title, and genre before I move ahead to logline. And while I'm taking these questions, everybody, I would just recommend that you use your sketchbook that you've already opened, if you haven't already done so, to start working out an early version of what that logline might be, or maybe writing down questions or different versions of that you have, and getting ready to copy and paste your text into the chat, which again you can find by mousing over the Classroom channel and pressing the small white word bubble that says Open Chat, which you can then use to share your text with us and get that early feedback today. So I would not share that yet, but just be typing that in your sketchbook and getting ready to copy and paste that comment or that logline into our text. Okay, in the meantime, I will take questions on title, genre, and comps. Feel free to either raise a hand or use the text. Looks like we have Joya raising a hand. Go ahead, Joya. So I've invited Joya to the stage. She'll need to click the accept invitation button. If that doesn't work, I'll take another raised hand. Joya might need to reconnect. Dakota, go ahead.
Hello again. So question on comps, just because I don't particularly find them particularly useful, but I still see the need for them, especially when things, people like to say, oh, this meets this, and that's, reasonable. How do you know exactly, like, what to really use, especially if you're not exactly sure, like, what to, even compare it to, even though you've seen, like, a lot of movies?
If you don't know where else to
Like, what do you
start,
do?
this is a good question. So I would try this basis of, or this just the very first suggestion of the world of X in the style or tone of Y. So ask yourself, like, where are my characters? What is the environment and the setting of my story? So if you're writing, I don't know, a Western that has zombies in it, then we might say this is like Tombstone. That's your world of. And then we say in the style or tone of Y, Tombstone meets Shaun of the Dead equals zombie comedy in a Western setting, right? But it's a totally different expectation if you say it's Tombstone meets The Last of Us, right? Because that's also a zombie story, but with a very serious, grounded, more realistic tone. So you're kind of you're telling us what is the world, and then what kind of experience can we expect in that world?
Got it. That makes sense. Thank you.
Sure, I hope that helps. And that's not going to always work, and it won't work for everybody. So if it ends up leading people astray, you can change it or use your own sort of like style of comps there. But that's just where I suggest as a starting point. Lee says, can you talk about choosing or revising a title? Any tips appreciated? Yeah, sure. So, you should at first, if you just are familiar with your genre, you know the kinds of titles that movies in your genre have. So for instance, like if it's a horror movie, a lot of the time the title is what? It's the threat. The title is the hook of the movie, and the hook in horror is the threat. So I would think of it as expressing why do people come to this particular entry in your genre, right? Like we know we're gonna we know it's gonna be scary, so you don't have to call the movie terrifying movie, but we kind of want to know what specifically is going to be terrifying about this one. So if this one, oh, it's about a killer duck, then we're gonna want to maybe pick a name that suggests that a duck is responsible for this terror and chaos. Call it, I don't know. Somebody think of a duck horror movie title for us. And it's call it Quacking in Your Boots or something like that. It sounds so stupid. I should stop talking. But in any case, you are trying to clarify what this one specifically is about, and also you have to figure out what the hook of your story actually is before you can come up with a perfect title sometimes. And that might require you to actually just pick something as a default to start with and then just see how it sort of fits. And as you write, see if something better comes to mind, or maybe it'll take you actually finishing the whole thing before you figure out what specifically you would frame the hook as. But typically you should know what your hook is, and the hook is always that answer to that question of, I've seen a million of this genre, why would I watch this one? And you're like, oh, well, because this one has blank in it. Yes, you've seen a million horror movies, but have you seen one about a crocodile with a gun? Or whatever it is, right? So crocodile with a gun, perfect title for a movie that clarifies what the specific hook in this one is. In thrillers, the hook is the situation. It's not always the threat, although sometimes those have a bit of crossover between them. But so if you're writing a thriller, then you want to pick a short, quick title and a hooky and memorable title that you've not seen used before that sums up what the situation is. A title like Unhinged, Frozen, or Trapped. Obviously Frozen we know is a Disney movie, but there's another thriller called Frozen where people are stuck on a ski lift. Oh no, they will be frozen up there if they are stuck. That's the situation that they are in. So every genre sort of has like different guidelines as to identifying what the hook is. In terms of romance, for instance, it's like the type of situation that leads to these people getting together, right? Something like You've Got Mail tells us, oh, okay, this is going to be a romance between people that communicate primarily through email. AOL Messenger, or AOL email, I guess. So yeah, try to identify the hook and give us a title that sums that up in a memorable way that you've not seen used before. Thank you for the question, Lee. Looks like we have Joya on stage. Joya, are you able to unmute your mic and speak out loud? It looks like your mic is still muted, so you'll have to click that small gray microphone icon. Oh, can you speak out now?
Yeah.
Hi.
Hi, Connor. How are you?
Hi, Joya. I'm good. Glad to be back in class. And you finished your first
No,
script,
you
is
don't
that
hear-
right?
Okay.
Are you able to hear me okay, Joya?
Yes, I have. And this is me high on life for having actually finished one. Yes. Oh, you can't hear me?
No, I can hear you okay. There's just a long delay,
Hello?
so it's like 8 seconds from when you speak and when we hear
Oh,
you. So
no.
if you're able to speak out loud, go ahead and tell us your question. I'm glad to take it.
So, with having finished that, but I'm going to throw it out there anyway. And maybe this is lack of sleep, but I want to do another. So, you tell me which way to go, and I'll just do that.
Hey, Joy. So I think I heard most of your question. You said you are trying to decide what script to write next, perhaps, or you're wondering if maybe you should revise first. I think if I'm understanding your question correctly, hopefully you'll hear me in a moment when the delay resolves. But so my recommendation is to put your last script away that you finished and just sit on it for a while, and I think you should just go ahead right into a new one. So don't revise yet. Do a new first draft, then come back to your first one, get some feedback, and revise if you want to. But you're usually going to learn more from writing something brand new than from revising the same thing again and again. And if this is your very first script, you just got one under your belt, then I think you'll get a lot from just go right ahead into a new one. All right, I'm going to move her back to the audience, but I hope that you were able to hear and understand that. Okay, Joya, maybe some connection issues there. Let me pause and see if we have any other questions before we go into loglines, and I'll explain a bit about them, and then you'll share your guys' loglines for that feedback. So get ready to post those. Don't do it just yet, but I'll take last questions. Any other raised hands or comments in the chat? Looks like we have a few folks typing, so I'll let you guys finish your questions. Again, prepare in your sketchbook whatever early version of your logline you have, even if it's not complete or you have a few different ones to choose from. Just get ready to copy and paste those in just a minute. In a moment, I'll just move ahead. Here's a question from Kev. Are comps more for us writing or other readers? Do people use comps in professional settings? Yeah, people definitely use comps in professional settings all the time. I thought they wouldn't as much as they do, but they actually do constantly. So you need to both have a sense of your comps. For yourself, it's important to keep yourself on track and to sort of know what you're aiming at. And it's also equally important for your readers. I guess it's a little bit more for them than it is for us, just so that they can know what the specific expectations are that you want to set in terms of tone, genre, and just like any other promises that you're making early on. If you claim one of your comps is something like, you know, Lost, people are going to expect a twisty, mind-bendy sci-fi story. So if you want to suggest that, then it's a good comp to include and to prime the audience properly. So they're primarily for others, but they're useful for yourself too. I would definitely at least come up with 2 of them as you start. You can always change them later if you want. Thanks for coming by, Katie. She says she's going to bed. But thank you for joining us. We hope to see you for the next one. Next week is also free, same time, same place, 6 p.m. next Friday. All right, let's go into loglines. I'm going to give a little explanation of how these things are working, and then we will share your loglines for feedback. Logline. What's a logline? It's one sentence that tells us what the story is about. The template generally kind of looks like this. When or after inciting incident, also known as the catalyst, interchangeably known as the catalyst, an adjective protagonist must conflict before stakes or ticking clock. This is not the only format you can possibly use for a logline, and if you have something better than this, then you can use it, but this is just the default you should start with to answer all the basic questions that somebody might have with a logline. Why do we bother with this? Well, one, it's for you. Like with the comps, it's for you and it's for others. It's really useful for you, though, because it's going to serve as that compass during your outlining and writing so that you can make sure that you are sticking to the same premise and that you are fulfilling the expectations that are set up in that premise. And also just a really well-written logline will yield several story beats that you can immediately put onto your story beats outline. And so by spending this extra time and making sure your logline is really good, you already pretty much have the shape of your story worked out, whether you know it or not. And we'll go more later into how you can start to work that into your structure. In any case, though, besides just for yourself and making sure that you stay on track, this is to persuade other people to read your script, because a strong logline is like an advertisement for the story. It's like a sentence-long trailer for the story that you has to do the difficult, heavy lifting of convincing someone to read it, which is not always easy to do, especially when it's going to be 100 pages, and especially if you're just starting out. You're essentially asking someone to spend several hours of their time enjoying entertainment that was made by someone who's not that good at making that entertainment, which is just a lot to ask. So it's important to make these connections and networking and things like this with writing groups, with other people that are kind of in your swaps with you and things like this, because they're going to be more forgiving of these things and more able to, you know, point out technically the specifics of what you've done right or wrong. But in any case, the logline is important to convince anyone to read your script, then to make it easier for anyone to discuss your script and tell if you're meeting your goals. and that if the story actually reflects that logline, they'll be able to give you feedback on that, because sometimes you might realize the story you've ended up with is not described by the logline that you gave us to begin with. So you have to change either one or the other, meaning you're going to have to either adjust your aims or the way that you are taking to approach your aims. And last, it's useful even for sharing pages with fellow writers, because it helps us know what is the story about. And if you're sharing a sequence from like the middle of the story, it might be hard for us to assess certain things like pacing, structure, or if you're, again, meeting the goals that you have set. So super important to have a strong logline as early in the process as you can. Usually I would spend a week or two at most on a logline. Okay, so let's look at these guidelines. So let's look at the specifics. Here we are. So when or after inciting incident, that's your catalyst, otherwise known as the catalyst. That's the thing that gets your story started, and it's the first domino that tips over, that's going to tip over the other dominoes that are going to lead through the entire narrative. We have an adjective protagonist, and you have to choose both of those carefully, and you can describe people in many different ways. A character that is, for instance, an ambitious banker, that's one way to describe that person. And if that is what is relevant about them for the story, if that is what is being challenged or tested about them, or maybe it's an adjective that expresses what is some unique limitation or ability that they have, something like that, some unique tactic that they'll use to solve their problems, those are usually a good place to start, But then again, if it's a story that doesn't really involve the facet of their career, like that aspect of their life that is informed by their career isn't relevant, maybe you describe the same person as a neglectful mother, right? That's the same character, an ambitious banker or a neglectful mother. But regardless, you have to kind of think of what makes them most, what is a way to describe them that makes them feel most relevant to this story, right? So a neglectful mother might need to learn how to become a better parent through the course of the story, where an ambitious banker might have some other totally different arc that isn't necessarily suggested by a flaw in the same way. So you can describe the character in many different ways, and you can pick many different characters to be the ones to sort of go through the situation of your movie. And usually in high concept feature writing, what you're doing is coming up with the situation first, and then you're sort of figuring out the best character to slot into that, the character that will have the hardest, most ironic or interesting or difficult journey along the way. So choose your adjective and protagonist carefully and the way that you express those things. Then you're moving on to conflict. Must conflict, that sort of tells us what is happening in Act 2 in the middle of the story, in the meat of the movie, for those pages 25 to 50, which is a substantial portion of the movie. We need to know what your main character is actually doing and what we are watching them do. So make sure that you express that pretty carefully and clearly, and how the specific way that they will approach this conflict. If you phrase it as vaguely as something like a princess must defeat an evil warlord, then we're just like, well, what does that actually look like, though? What is the actual objective, milestone, or tactic that she's going to have to use by which we measure her progress at defeating that evil warlord? If it's like they both are racing after the same book, that when whoever gets the book first gets the power of Zeus, then that is actually more specific and clear, comes with that specific, the tangible objective, that sense of progress to it that we can more easily envision. So try not to phrase this in too vague terms. Make sure you are actually giving us you're emphasizing the specificity of that objective. And then we have in order to, stakes, or ticking clock, and this is going to be either what the character stands to lose in the story, so they must rescue their daughter or else she will be lost forever, or he must find a way to get back to his time or else all of time will fall apart, or whatever it is. You need to find what is actually threatened, or what stands to be lost or destroyed in the story. Why does your main character have to act with motivation and urgency? And then the ticking clock is another element that might be present, which is they have to solve the case within 3 days or else the killer gets away. Something that just adds the element of time pressure and the really clear milestone of a finish line to your story, so we understand how long we're going to be watching this for, what is the scope and the scale of it, how long your main character has to resolve the problem. Okay, so that's an explanation of just these basic elements of logline. Again, to review one more time the whole thing: when or after inciting incident, an adjective protagonist must conflict before, stakes, or ticking clock. So once you have those down, you can rearrange the order a little bit, or you can, if you realize that certain elements of it are implied, then you can sort of not necessarily, you don't necessarily have to follow every letter of that. And when you browse long lists of loglines, sometimes they on things like blacklist, hitlist, they are written not by the writer themselves, but by their manager or by some other person on their team. So sometimes the writer isn't in full control of what the logline will sort of manifest as, but you can see here are just some of my loglines here that I have. These have been my most successful scripts that I've written, and on one of them, it ended up 2 sentences, and I would not have written the logline exactly like this if I were in charge of it. But the other ones I have mostly truncated parts of, implied other parts of. This is just to show you that you don't always have to answer all those questions, but you should at least imply the answers. We shouldn't be wondering what the answer to any of these questions is. These questions of who is this about? What kicks off the story or starts this chain of events? What are they doing, and what is the main character doing, or what is the objective in the story, and what is standing in the way? So as long as we have all of those, and at least we have some sense of it, perhaps just implied ticking clock or implied time pressure or urgency, then that can work well. Okay, shall we share log lines? I think it's time. We don't need to go too deep into structure right now. That will mostly be next week. I can briefly, toward the end, mention what we're going to include in scene cards, and I'll also take questions as to the whole 8-week process, but for right now, I think we just want to get through as many log lines as possible. So go ahead and share those in the chat. I'm going to ask you questions about them and mark them up and give as many people feedback as we can in the 45 minutes that remain. Not guaranteed to get to everybody, so this will sort of be in the order of first come, first served. If you post your log line, I will try to get to it. All right, and if you are posting multiple, then you're going to have to choose one. I would choose your favorite and either ask for feedback on that, or I can help you choose which one to work on, but we can't do both. So let me know if you'd rather have me just point at one and go, that one, or I can give you feedback on a specific one. Okay, we're going to start with Lalo. And we have 2 different options. So I'm going to invite you to speak, and you're going to have to answer questions and speak out loud.
Okay.
Hi there.
Yeah. Hi. It's Lalo.
Lalo, thank you for that. All right. So why don't you read out what you have for us?
I read the first I written.
Sure.
The title is Enamorado Tuyo or In Love with You. It's a coming-of-age drama that tells the story of Ignacio. After the pandemic, Ignacio is a solitary boy who will live his last high school year, but then he meets a girl who will make him feel human. Becomes imagining her and Superbad had a children that was raised by punch drunk love.
All right, thank you for that. And so would you rather get feedback on that one, or are you looking more for help choosing between both of these ideas?
I want to find out which is the best option and start working with it.
Okay, so why don't you read the second one for us too, and then I'll give you some suggestions as to which one to work on.
Okay. Las del Vestido Azul, or the ones in blue dress, is a romantic drama, and with the logline is on a day when the female members of the household are not present, 3 men will talk about their first love. Comes imagining her, a millennium actress, had a children, and the godfather is 12 Angry Men.
All right, thank you for sharing these. So the first thing I would say is that this is what I was sort of talking about with too many comps. So if you have like 4 comps on some of these, her, Millennium Actress, 12 Angry Men, and Godfather, that's a lot of comps. It's sort of hard to assess what your actual aims or goals are with the project if you have that many. So try to boil it down to 2 comps for each one, just so we can understand what you're going for, what you're attempting. I think that
Okay.
Go ahead.
No, okay. I'm okay.
Okay, great. So what else I would say for this would be I'm looking for a conflict in either of these. I see a little more conflict in the first one. The second one, I don't really quite understand what the conflict even is. Guys just talking about love doesn't feel like it has a finish line, an objective. It kind of just feels like a conversation, which doesn't sound very dramatic. So if I had to pick between these, I would suggest maybe going with the first one. I can see a solitary boy sort of maybe wants to break out of his shell somehow. Maybe that's the conflict. Maybe he's trying to find a way to make friends or to be more social or something like that. And I can maybe see how this new relationship or this new friend will help him along that line or along that journey. So just because I can see the conflict more clearly, I'd recommend the first one.
Okay. I need to say that this first idea I have like 8 pages of script. I just need to translate it, but I understand that. The other one is like after watching 12 Angry Men, I have that idea.
Okay, yeah, that's totally fine. You can always have a couple backup comps if you're like you think you're not quite sure which ones to go with. So you can make a little list of backups, but just try to decide on two to attach to each movie idea. And also, I will say Her is a sci-fi movie. So again, if your movie doesn't have sci-fi in it, I probably wouldn't use a sci-fi comp.
But in my case, her is inspiration for about the loneliness and how the people have relationships in more the more romantic side or more romance side of the movie is what I touch about.
That's true, but there's also movies that don't have sci-fi in them that explore the same themes. So if it's just the themes that you're trying to communicate from the comp, there's a lot of other options.
Like Lost in Translation.
Sure, that's a good one.
Okay, I need to say this. Thanks. My head was frying, trying to choose between that two options, and having a more clear point helps a lot.
Great. Thank you so much for volunteering. Hope this helped.
Oh, thanks to you. I owe you my life. Nah, I'm joking, but thanks.
Okay, thanks so much. All right, let's keep going. We'll get through as many as we can. We'll start with Vichikita, Territorial. I'll invite her to the stage.
Hi.
Hello. Can you read this for us?
Yes. Title: Territorial, genre dark romance, logline: after a reclusive orphan half-monster comes of age, she must marry the monster that killed her parents. She must find a way to avoid it and take revenge before her grandparents force the little sister to marry this monster to keep their state. Comps are Red Riding Hood from 2011 and Anna Karenina.
All right, thank you for this. So I want to make sure that I understand, so I'm going to read it again. Territorial, after a reclusive, orphaned half-monster comes of age, she must marry the monster that killed her parents. She must find a way to avoid getting married, I guess, and take revenge for the killing of her parents before her grandparents force her little sister to marry the monster. I thought the stakes were our main character was threatening or was in danger of having to marry this monster. I don't quite see what the stakes are. If you're sort of telling us the stakes are two separate things. To keep their state, I don't quite know what that means. Maybe that's a translation problem. What do you mean when you say keep their state?
Keep their home, I meant.
Keep their home. Oh, maybe you mean estate with an E, like that?
Yeah, maybe.
Okay. So I'm interested in the basics of this. I mean, an orphaned half-monster comes of age and now must marry the monster that killed her parents. I understand that, and I'm with you for that much. But then I guess we're kind of asking the question, or my brain is asking the question, what actual time frame does this movie take place in? Is this all leading up to the marriage? And in which case, how long exactly does our main character have to do this? Would maybe be a question. So I guess also I'm wondering, is the main character the one in danger, or is her little sister the one in danger?
I wanted to put the little sister or her in danger. I was a bit confused in that part. That's why it's that long.
Oh, so are you saying they're both in danger?
Yes.
They both are. Okay. So in this case, I think maybe you should write a one-sentence version of this. I think that would be a little clearer. So something like, after a reclusive, I like this first part, orphaned half-monster comes of age. And a lot of the time, we're going to kind of want to be more specific. When you say half-monster, what monster do you mean? Is it a monster type that we already know about, or is it a brand new monster that you invented just for this movie?
I invented it.
Okay, can you compare it to something?
A video game creature, but I have to turn this the chat, so because I don't know if everyone knows Bloodborne.
Probably not, but can you maybe just describe, is it like a werewolf? Is it like a ghost? Is it like a shapeshifter? Is it a mermaid? Like, can you just maybe compare it to something similar?
It's like a werewolf mixed with like more humanoid features.
Okay.
Yes, it's a bit Lovecraftian in nature.
Okay, so you might want because different monsters come with very different rules to them, right? Like a werewolf has totally different rules than a vampire, which has totally different rules than a zombie, which has rules that are different than a ghost. Then it's helpful if you have monsters playing a key role in your story to not just call them monsters. We want to have a better idea of what the story actually is. So even if you have to kind of like simplify what's actually going on here, and you said something like a half werewolf comes of age, I don't exactly know what a half werewolf is, but at least it would help me a little bit more with the specificity of what is going on in the story. So I would maybe just describe the monsters in a little bit of a simpler, more reductive way if you need to. A reclusive, orphaned half werewolf comes of age. She must find a way to kill her suitor before he marries her and her younger sister, something like that. You know, see what I mean? Where if you want to include both of them in the stakes of the story, then you'll have to find a way to fit it into that one sentence version of it. And then from this, I think you can cut away a lot of the other stuff. Must find a way to avoid it and take revenge before her grandparents force her little. Okay, so we can combine all this information into just one sentence. So try that one sentence version and be clear about what the monsters are and how they work, and I think that you'll be in better shape.
I posted the picture of what I meant.
A picture? Oh, great, thank you. Yeah, I see kind of like it looks sort of like a wolf man demon thing. Here we go. Yeah, so I think just, you could even maybe call it she's half wolf demon, if that is a better explanation of what it is, but just call it something that we can read it and know what to imagine, if that helps.
Okay.
All right, I'm going to paste this in the chat just so you can use. You don't have to use exactly this, but maybe just consider how you would simplify everything into one single sentence like this. Thank you for sharing. Does that make sense? Any questions?
Yes, it makes more sense than what I had. Thank you.
Great. Thanks for sharing. Let's keep going. We have Tanner H. Cinnamon says it sounds like polygamy when I said it that way. I thought she was getting at polygamy, but maybe is there someone else that's going to marry the younger sister? Maybe you just have to clarify who's going to marry whom there exactly. All right, let's get Tanner up on stage. We have a couple different loglines here. And when you guys post, including the genre, very helpful. Are you there, Tanner? I can't hear Tanner now because you'll actually need to click the accept invitation to speak button, which should be like in a green bar at the top of your Discord panel. If you're on a tablet or a mobile device, you might need to turn it on its side to see it properly. There we go, you're on stage now. Maybe try speaking out loud. So I'm still not getting microphone from Tanner, so you might be on push to talk mode. Still not getting a mic input, so click the gear icon, user settings, go to voice and video, and check the input device. I'll come back to you, Tanner, if you're able to get this worked out. I'll call on you again in just a moment. I'll do somebody else first, and we'll return to him. Okay, let's do Dakota, and we'll come back to Tanner after. Dakota.
Hello.
Hello. Got a drama
Hello.
logline for us?
Yes, I do. First of all, I just want to say I appreciate the time. It's been awesome and great. You're wonderful. Thank you so much for doing just all of this. This has been
Sure.
fantastic.
Yeah, thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
Go right ahead.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, this is great. This is a historical piece, but I have done my research on this for sure.
Great.
This is this is the logline. So I'm just looking to see if it's fine or what I need to improve on. Just kind of just general things.
Great.
You
Okay.
know,
Can you read it for us out loud?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So, when an aging animation master becomes entangled in the Prague Spring, he must finish his last film before he is blacklisted by the communist regime.
All right. Thanks for this. So, I'm actually not familiar with the historical period you're talking about. What is the Prague Spring?
The Prague Spring is the revolution. It was a democratic revolution in Czechoslovakia that led to basically resulted in the invasion of Czechoslovakia by the Soviet Union. It was featured in "We Didn't Start the Fire," actually, in Billy Joel, the Billy Joel song. Prague Spring was an incredible moment in history. It was one of the most successful revolutions in history, and it is the reason why Czechoslovakia has democracy. And it basically started the democratization process in Europe and was essentially considered the, quote, beginning of the end for the Soviet Union. And it happened in 1969.
Okay, great. So that's all interesting and very specific, and it sounds like you've done your research, but I would hazard that a lot of Americans don't know what this refers to or what this specifically is. So if you're able to pitch this in such a way that it doesn't require someone to know what the Prague Spring is, like if you call it even if you put it in terms of like the, quote, Prague Spring revolution movement, something like that just gives us a clue as to when and where we are. Like, we don't want someone to not read this just because they're like, I don't know what he's talking about, and like it should be pitched in such a way that if we haven't heard of this event, this is an opportunity for us to learn about it. So maybe give us the year, maybe like the, I don't know, 1968 Prague Spring Revolution, something like that. If you just kind of spell it out a little bit, pretend we're very dumb, we don't know what this is, and that will help us understand what we're going to be watching a little bit more. On top of that, I would ask, how does an animation master, an animator, like for movies, I guess is what you're saying, like who makes cartoons, it becomes... Go ahead.
He was a puppeteer.
A puppeteer?
Yeah, he was a puppeteer, animated puppet films.
But you've described him as an animation master. That makes me think like Hayao Miyazaki at his desk drawing frames of animation, or Disney or things like that. I think what you're saying is puppeteer then, right?
Well, he made animations with puppets.
Isn't that called doing a puppet show?
No.
No.
He made animated films using puppets.
So it's like stop motion?
Yes.
Oh, stop motion.
Yes.
Okay. I guess you might still call him an animator in that case, but it's a very unorthodox type of animation. If puppets are usually performed live, right?
No, that's actually marionettes. A true puppet is something that stands on its own. Puppets was a very Eastern European tradition. So it was actually very common in Eastern Europe, and it still very much is, to see puppet animation in this style. So stop motion puppetry is very common in Eastern Europe, not so much as in the States or anywhere else, but it is the first form of animation, technically.
Okay, well, that's all interesting, and I'm glad to learn that.
Yeah.
But it does make me wonder how someone like that would become in any way connected to a revolution.
Oh, so he was very politically and socially involved. He was basically considered the Walt Disney of Europe. He was very influential in his spaces. and he was very vocal about what was going on.
So when you say he becomes involved in it, that sounds like it's almost not even his fault. I think you need to maybe phrase this in more of an active way if he's participating in a more. Does that make sense? So if it's when an aging stop motion animator joins the revolution as opposed to becomes entangled in it, it's just the cause and effect is a little unclear right now.
Right, that makes sense. Yeah. All his work was banned after this, by the way.
Oh, I'm sure.
So, yeah, absolutely.
So he sacrifices everything for this.
Yes, this was his career. Everything.
Yeah, so maybe there's a way you can sort of include that, right, to sort of emphasize what the specific conflict here is when and maybe also we want to know what compels him to do this. Something like, when the government burns down his studio or whatever. I don't know if you're saying this is a true story, I'll have to figure out what is the actual straw that broke the camel's back or something. Then an aging stop motion animator joins the blank revolution in an effort to blank. And then I guess you're saying making the last film will sort of be a revolutionary act that he is attempting to accomplish a specific objective with. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So it's a sort of subversive film, maybe, or something like that. Like it's a maybe propaganda for his side, or it's like it's a political statement.
It was very much a political statement. Very much.
Then I would include that too, because that is telling us sort of what is the sort of conflict we're going to see. If you're just saying he must finish his last film before he's blacklisted, that sounds like he's just making something personal for himself. When in reality, he's not just doing this as an art project. There's a specific point to it with an objective that he's trying to accomplish. So I think you just need to be a little clearer as to like the stakes will reveal themselves to us when you emphasize why this is important. And so something like he must finish his subversive last film in order to blank a specific thing, or he must finish it, despite attacks from government goons, or he must finish it in order to deliver it to this specific location or to have it broadcast on this channel or something like that. I would just get a little bit more concrete about the motivation and urgency behind this, and then we'll understand why it's important that this story be told and why why we should invest in this character's journey, because he's not just an artist trying to make a project. He's a political figure that's using his unique art form to accomplish his objective.
Yes, absolutely.
I'll write that down.
Thank you so much.
Quick version of that.
Super helpful.
Sure.
Thank you. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for sharing.
You all have a great weekend.
Yep, you too. Thank you so much. Hope that's helpful.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Jiri, historical drama. And maybe if you want to include a link to an article about that guy, if that's a real figure, then I'm sure some listeners would be interested in seeing. Thanks, Dakota. Okay, so what was I writing? Political figure that uses his unique art to accomplish a specific high-stakes objective. There we go. Okay, let's keep going down the list. We have 20-ish minutes left. I'm going to call on Tanner again, see if he's able to speak out loud. Got him on stage. I still don't hear mic input. If you're joining on a PC with a mic, you might want to try joining on a smartphone. If you have an Android or iPhone, the Discord app installs pretty quickly and might be a good alternative if this is not working for you. I'm still glad to offer you, even if you can't answer questions, I could still look at the logline and offer you comments if you want. Thank you, Dakota. Jiri Trinka, maybe is how you say that. If anyone's curious about this puppet animation master, there's a link in the chat. Hi, Tanner.
Hello. Can you hear me?
We hear you now.
Okay, great.
Awesome.
I'm not sure what's going on.
No worries. There's problems like that all the time. Did you decide on a logline you want feedback on?
I think we can go on number 1.
Okay. Did you already show? So this one about the sex worker?
Yeah.
All right. Why don't you read it out for us?
A sex worker falls for someone that makes her question everything, but must overcome a layered past before she's left behind.
All right. Thanks for this. And do you have genre, title, or comps for this?
I don't have. genre, maybe dramedy.
Dramedy.
Kind of like a slow burn comedy. Yeah.
Okay. And Untitled. Okay, let me check this out again. A sex worker falls for someone that makes her question everything, but must overcome a layered past before she is left behind. I want to make sure I understand. Let me ask a couple questions, if I may. A sex worker falls for someone, a man or a woman?
A man.
A man, okay. And is his identity important at all? I mean, like, is he like, I guess I want to know why she's questioning everything and what specifically that means.
I think, I haven't fleshed it out, but I think because she didn't think she'd go down the route where, like a heteronormative route, where she would start dating someone and fall in love with one person.
Okay, so the thing that's special about him is just that she gets along with him really well and they fall in love?
Yeah.
Okay. And it makes her question everything. So what's the conflict here?
I think she's torn between two worlds. One world where she enters a place that is away from career that she's her life around, one that's more like in a normal society.
Okay. And she feels that she can't be with him if she continues to be a sex worker, is that right?
Right.
Okay. So she falls for a man that makes her question everything, but must overcome a layered past. So I guess just overcoming a past is just kind of an abstract sounding objective to me. Does that make sense? It's
yeah.
I don't quite know what it means.
It's a bit of an ambiguous overall.
Yeah.
So I need to be more clear on each kind of piece.
Yeah, if you can figure, is there like an antagonist?
I haven't thought about that part yet. I feel like maybe there could be one that could add a layer to this.
There doesn't really have to be. I mean, drama kind of gives you this ability to write stories where your main character is also sort of the antagonist, or maybe like their negative traits are kind of the antagonist, or something like that. But if that's the
I
case,
think that's more what I was thinking of.
It is.
The negative traits getting in the way of pursuing, like, living a healthier life.
Okay, then in that case, I would try to find what specific things she's doing that will serve as milestones in overcoming her past. Like, is it she must quit heroin? Something like that would be like a specific, tangible thing that I understand and can see the progression of. So I would find like what elements of her past, or is it like she must escape her former pimp or whatever? Like if there's somebody that's controlling or trafficking her, then maybe that is sort of an antagonist that we can understand. You have to defeat this person in whatever way before you can solve your problem and leave this previous life behind. If it's herself that's kind of the antagonist, it doesn't have to be as clear cut as like she must overcome an addiction, but it might be something like and again, you're going to want to pick an adjective for your main character that tells us a bit about her personality or specific limitations or skills or ways that she will approach solving problems or something like that. So it might be something like, I don't know, and if we start with something like a troubled and emotionally stunted character, that's going to be a totally different journey than if you start her in a different emotional place. So just pick the adjective carefully. And that will tell us maybe what your character's struggling with a little bit more. So if we say, like, an emotionally stunted sex worker falls for a man that makes her question everything, she then attends a group meeting and she starts attending, like, some sort of program where she's going to try to once she completes this program, she's going to try to overcome her self-doubt or her whatever negative traits are standing in the way. I guess I don't quite know what the answer is for you, because it seems like maybe you just need to do a little more thinking as to what are the specifics of the story, and in doing so, I think you'll find what is the actual kind of goalpost here. It seems you've described the type of situations that she's going to be encountering, but not the actual specifics. So right now, this feels a little more like a TV logline than a feature logline. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, and when you say before she is left behind, do you mean the guy will move on and not want to be with her anymore because he's posed some sort of ultimatum to her where he'll only be with her if she quits being a sex worker?
To a certain degree, yeah.
Okay. So I guess I just wasn't immediately sure what you meant when you said before she's left behind, because I didn't understand that he was going to like leave her if she didn't make this choice or whatever. So maybe just look at this sort of this very last part in an effort to clarify what's actually going to happen here.
Okay.
All right. I realized that was kind of diffuse and spread out advice, but does that give you just a little bit of more of a sense of how to make this more concrete and feel like we know specifically the journey that your character is going to be on, not like the type of journey that she's going to be on?
Yeah, no, it's very helpful. Can you repeat what you said about before she is left behind? Just how to clarify that to make it a logline more clear?
Sure. I could just like give me 1 second. A sex worker falls for a man that makes her. And I would just maybe if you can be a little more specific with the guy as well. I mean, this sounds like a romance story, right? I mean, this is about them making their relationship work and overcoming trials and obstacles and making that work, right?
Yeah.
So try to highlight what their sort of contrasting traits are. You might say something like an emotionally reclusive sex worker falls in love with oversharing. This is like if you say dramedy, I want to know what's going to be a little funny about this. With an oversharing client. And instead of saying she must question things, phrase it more in the terms of what she has to overcome, struggle against, or defeat. So, and say something like, and must conquer her alcoholism and self-doubt. Just a bad example. You don't have to use that, but that's just like one specific concrete thing and then one maybe emotional obstacle in an effort to make their relationship work and leave her former life behind. Something like that. I know that's just like a first quick version of this.
Yeah.
It's a little too long as well. But if you can maybe use that and just try to emphasize again what is contrasting between these characters. In the romance thing, we're always like, he's a big city boy, she's a small town girl. Whatever it is, whether it's in their background, personality traits, or like just try to emphasize for us who these people are, because we want to know what relationship we're going to be rooting for here in the movie, and then tell us what specific things she has to overcome or defeat in order to signal that she's ready to make this relationship work, or she has sufficiently. We want to know when she has sufficiently overcome those obstacles.
Okay, thank you so much.
Sure. Thanks, Tanner, for sharing. And I'll say a lot of the time in high concept drama and romance and things like this, where you're trying to achieve primarily an emotional goal, it's really useful to add this sort of external stakes, this external goalpost of some kind, because so few romance stories are just like, this guy meets this girl and they try to make it work. It's like, this guy and this girl get assigned together on the same project at work, and now they have 2 weeks to deliver a presentation together. And along the way, the understanding of the genre is that they will bounce off each other and hate each other at first, but come to love each other and then make it work. So think of maybe what's a trip you can put them on, or a battle of the bands they can be working up to, or some kind of actual objective. Maybe it's like he's only in the country for a short time, and his visa is going to run out in 4 weeks, or something like that. So she'd have to like set up a green card marriage with him or something. That's maybe not the best idea, but I hope, Tanner, that makes sense as to how we can add in these external goalposts, which will help us envision a feature story more easily. Because a feature story is like a very condensed series of events, and it's the most important events in your main character's life. It's helpful if you have some sort of external frame for those things as you move forward through the story. Okay, we have a couple more. 10 minutes left. I'll be quick. I think we have Shakira. The perfect shots.
Hello?
Hi, Shakira. Can you read your logline for us?
Yes, I will. We go get to it. When an awkward art student cannot attract young people to his art workshop, he decides to pose as a gangster to introduce them to the arts. He runs into grave problems when gangsters realize he is not one of them. And the comp saw The World of the Chai meets screenwriters. Probably still have to work on that one.
Okay, no worries. Thank you for sharing. Let me take one more look at this, then I'll be able to assess it. So, drama. When an awkward art student cannot attract young people to his art workshop, he decides to pose as a gangster to introduce them to the arts. Why would people be open to having the arts introduced to them by a gangster? I'm not totally sure. He runs into grave problems when gangsters realize he's not one of them. Oh, okay. So you're sort of saying that he's trying to get gangsters to come to his show?
No, he's trying to get young people to come to his art workshop. It's like he's not getting the people that he thinks he should get, like the people that are in need of help. So he tries to kind of connect with them more by posing as like a gangster, because they gives him credibility to teach, basically.
Is he posing as a specific person, or is he just changing his personality and using that to try to draw in a crowd that he doesn't belong to?
Yeah, he's posing as someone that they would respect and would listen to rather than himself.
Okay, so young people are more willing to be introduced to sort of this element of culture by someone they perceive as cool because he's not cool normally?
Yeah.
Okay, I think I see. When you say pose as a gangster, I guess that just seemed ambiguous to me as to whether or not you meant a specific person that he was imitating, or what you're sort of saying is that he is he creating a sort of a secondary personality for himself? Is that right? Or is he changing his entire lifestyle so he's just like this instead?
It's a secondary lifestyle for himself. So he's still awkward, but it's like when he comes outside, he's like a different person, has a different persona.
I see. And is he trying to keep that a secret, like a secret identity, or is he more just like saying, this is who I am now?
It's a secret identity, basically.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
Okay, so this seems like it should sort of be in the logline. If you're sort of saying an awkward art student creates an alter ego, a cooler alter ego, I think this again sounds a little bit like a comedy. Or I didn't say this before, but this sounds a bit like a comedy to me rather than a drama, just because it's kind of a ridiculous plan, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds kind of funny.
Yeah.
Are you open to it being funny, or do you see this being very serious?
I'm open to being funny. It can be funny.
Oh, you like that? Okay, so maybe dramedy would be an okay genre for it. I'll write that here. Dramedy. Okay, so when an awkward art student creates a cool alter ego, cooler gangster alter ego, to attract young people, or to introduce young people to his art workshop, he attracts the attention of blank, who then threatens to blank.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does make sense.
Okay, so my assumption is, and this feels a little, again, like a farce a little bit to me, but so he starts to actually succeed at bringing people into his art workshop, but then actual local gangsters are maybe offended by him, or maybe thinking that he's a rival of theirs, or something like that?
Yeah, something of the sort.
Okay, and then they cause trouble and threaten to shut the art workshop down?
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. So yeah, try to phrase it a little more along these lines. I'll paste this into the chat for you, and then I think it'll be a lot clearer just in the one single sentence version.
Okay.
Cool. Any questions on this?
No, thank you.
Thanks, Jakir.
No problem.
All right, got a couple more. I think we have Lee. Primordial Blues. Oh, I think... Did she leave? I don't see her in the chat room. Oh, there you are.
I was just muted.
No worries. You've got a new... is this a pilot? This is a feature, right? New feature for us.
Yeah, I made it up in the past hour and a half.
Great. Is this your first feature?
I haven't written a feature yet. I've outlined a couple, but I haven't. Yeah.
Awesome.
So we'll see.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Why don't you read this out for us?
Sure. Primordial Blues It's a fantasy drama world of Jumanji with the tone of Boyhood. Um, and it's discovers to solve all of life's little problems, but struggles to keep it secret from her venture capitalist parents.
Okay. Thanks for this. Primordial Blues. A timid child discovers a strange pool with the power to solve all of life's little problems. Can you give some examples of what that means?
I'm thinking this is really and truly a child, so 7 or 8 years old, which would mean for her some of these problems would be things like, I don't know, she forgot to bring her textbook to school, and she's in concept, which I don't think makes it into the log line. The idea is like it is literally like primordial ooze that has this limitless potential, and it can shapeshift and whatever, kind of form into whatever she needs it to be. And so she's using it to solve these little tiny problems like I forgot to bring my textbook, or I don't have money for the bus, or things like that.
But she has to
to
go back
kind
to
of-
the pool to access the goo?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I haven't
But if
fully
the-
thought of that yet.
Right, so I guess I'm just thinking, if you have to go back to the pool every time, that kind of really limits how useful this is, in terms of you left your text. It's just as easy to go back home and get your textbook as it would be to go to the pool and get a magic textbook, right?
That's true. Yeah.
Okay, so maybe what you're saying is she discovers a
Maybe-
magic goo
maybe she's a
that she
jar
can
of
carry
it.
with her. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. So
Yes.
maybe
There we go.
instead of saying she discovers a strange pool, she discovers a strange substance, like a strange
Awesome.
magic shape-shifting substance that can become whatever her heart desires. If you phrase it more like that, like right now this is just kind of vague and abstract. Solve all of life's little problems. I don't even know what that means really. And also the pool aspect of it makes it seem like the pool itself is the important part. So I think what you want to say is she discovers a strange goop magic
Yeah.
substance that can become whatever her heart desires. She struggles to keep it.
Awesome.
Okay, so one of your comps should be Flubber, probably. I feel like
Oh, yeah.
gooey.
I
magic
forgot
goo,
about Flubber.
in terms of magic goo films. That's got to be on the list, right?
Yep.
And Boyhood, is it really the tone of Boyhood?
That's the idea.
Like very contemplative, reflective, like
Yes.
almost slice of life style storytelling without like you're not gonna pick. I mean, Jumanji is your other comp. I'm just struggling to see how these tones make sense
Yeah.
together, because one of these high concept, big budget action comedy, one of these contemplative, slow paced slice of life movie about people just growing up and not going on adventures. How do those square together, I guess, is my other question.
You're describing my constant struggle with screenwriting.
It's tough. I mean, if you have some super
It's
specific
both.
tone in mind, then there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Maybe it does make sense, and I just am not seeing it yet.
I mean, I think the idea is to, I guess Boyhood is the better comp for the tone. And it's just Boyhood with fantasy elements, I think, is what I would go for.
And stronger stakes and clearer goalposts and antagonists.
Yes.
So
And
it's really
yeah.
that much like Boyhood at the end of, like, that's how I'm just I'm like, because the whole, to me, the whole idea behind using Boyhood as one of your comps is saying this is a non-traditionally structured movie. This takes place over many years, many generations, is very more reflective and not based on external conflict. It's more about internal conflict. It's more of an art house film, whereas I just I think I would. I don't quite understand how the comps could work together. Maybe there is some brilliant way that they do, but I guess that's just my question when I see it. As you know, imagining myself to be a reader or a executive who's looking at this, my thought would be, go ahead.
Is there something with that a movie that you would suggest instead of Boyhood with that like sort of contemplative slice of life tone that wouldn't set off those other sort of bells of like, this movie has so much going on, or Boyhood has so much more going on that kind of takes precedence?
That's a good question. I think we may throw it to the chat for now, and I may have to think about it more and get back to you, just given the time that we have. But it's a good question. I think we'll want to pick something that has both elements of maybe fantasy and that kind of contemplative thing. Maybe something like maybe there's a Charlie Kaufman movie that would work. or wait, is this for kids or no?
I haven't decided.
Okay, that'll definitely
That's
determine your
a good
comps.
question.
Yeah.
We'll sit on that question too. Yeah.
Right. We'll have to come back then next week or just spend this week, think on it, and ask yourself. I mean, do you want? Is this for? It's about a kid, but is it for kids?
Yeah.
Is it meant to be like
Right.
a family film? In which case, you would be well suited to pick a movie that is intended for kids as one of your comps. I mean, Jumanji is, but or primarily, but then that'll just guide how you pick the other one. If you want it to definitely not be for
Awesome.
kids, maybe you're like, it's like being John Malkovich meets Jumanji or something like that, right? But then
Nice.
I think that'll just help your decision making.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, Lee. All right. How many more do we have? One. Are we? We're down to our last one. Okay, great. I think we can finish up with Vincent Price's inferior twin. This is a logline, right? Am I able to invite you to speak? Is Vincent Price's twin still in the room? No. They've left the room, meaning I cannot give feedback on your logline. Sorry about that. Okay. Well, that will conclude our class for today then. Thank you guys all so much for coming. We hope to see you at the week 1, and you should definitely sign up now that we have these amazing new low prices. Scriptcamp.net/membership. You can sign up for your unlimited subscription, access to every single thing we do. You can either buy if you pay it for the monthly price, $29 a month. And if you're getting yearly, you will save 40% and will be paying just $19 a month for over 100 hours of interactive classes, networking events, workshops, QAs, bootcamp courses, script swaps, advanced labs, and all sorts of new events that we have yet to add. So check it out, scriptcamp.net/membership. We hope to see you guys soon. Thanks so much for coming.